Orthodox as well as the Catholics, right, since the beginning, since apostolic times, have had icons and statuary and stuff like this, right? And even the older Protestant churches, Lutherans, Anglicans, maybe some Methodists, they have icons and some statues and things like that, right? So you see, as time went on within Protestantism, as doctrines were thrown out and new ideas came up, people looked at these texts in Scripture and took them out of context and didn't really know what they were talking about and interpreted them incorrectly. So then, therefore, if you have a statue of Jesus or an icon of Mary, you're an idolater. So that's not the correct interpretation or understanding of it. Another point I wanted to bring up is that people are always attacking the Catholic Church. Oh, you have icons, you have statues, and everything like that. But the Orthodox Church, right, which dates itself back to the 1st century along with the Catholic Church, have icons as well. They have tons of icons. If you go into an Orthodox church, it's beautiful. There's icons all over the place, right? And this is not idolatry. This is honoring the person, honoring these great Christian people throughout time who've done God's will and done these amazing, miraculous things and brought people to Christianity, and goes on and on and on. Honoring these people, honoring Mary and the saints, is further honoring God, because God, through God's grace, He made these people great. It wasn't by their own doing. Of course, they had to say yes with their free will, and live a good life and live that Christian life. But God chose these people. He poured His grace upon them. So when you don't honor these people, when you don't say, Mary brought Christ into the world by her yes, the saints did all these wonderful things. If you don't even acknowledge that, then you're not acknowledging the greatness of God. That's all due to God. So also, as well as the Orthodox, the Apostolic churches, the Syro-Malabar Church, and all these churches of the East in Northern Africa, and the Coptic Church, and all these ones that have been around, for 2,000 years, they also have icons and statues and stuff like this. Another point I wanted to bring up was the Second Council of Nicaea in 787. During this time, the church had a debate whether they should use icons and statuary in liturgical worship and put it in the churches and everything. And looking at Scripture and tradition, but especially Scripture, especially from the verses that I just quoted, that it was actually positive and actually helped the Christian to have these icons and statuary in the church. So now you may ask, well, I don't care about the Second Council of Nicaea. The only creed is Christ. I've heard that before. But the problem is that that's not actually true, because all Protestant, the Orthodox Protestant beliefs, like the Trinity, the dual nature of Christ, all these, the virgin birth, all these doctrines were formulated from Scripture and tradition in various councils. So the First Council of Nicaea in 325 AD talked about that, debunked the Arian heresy. The Arians are the present-day Jehovah's Witness. They said that Jesus is not God. He's a lesser being, right? So they debunked that. So from Scripture and from oral tradition. So if you're going to say, I don't need the councils, then you're in a big trouble, because the councils, the councils are responsible for many of the beliefs that you hold dear today. So this is later on. This is in the 8th century, the Second Council of Nicaea, but it is still very credible. Lastly, I wanted to bring up an example of the contemporary use of statues in our society. You go to any city and you see, in the United States, and you see statues of George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, etc. Is this breaking the Ten Commandments? Is this idolatry? Is this making a graven idol? No, because it's not an idol. It's an icon or a statue of a great person. The government or whatever, people make these statues to honor these people who've done these great things for our country. You don't see someone going in front of it and saying, this is my God. Abraham Lincoln is my God who created me. He's the Alpha and the Omega. If someone did that, then that's idolatry. But to have a statue to remember, to honor someone who did such a great thing, that's not idolatry. That's ridiculous. To say that, that's ridiculous. Also, what about when people go to wakes? Another example. People go to wakes or go to funerals. Many times you kneel before a casket and you pray, right? Now people say, oh, well, Catholics kneel before statues, so they're worshiping the statue. You kneel before a person, a loved one's body in the casket, and you're praying for that person or praying for the family, right? You're not praying to the dead body. The dead body isn't God. I mean, this is a custom of how you're expressing your grief and sadness and love for that person, right? So when Catholics go to church and you kneel before the statue of the Blessed Virgin Mary or St. Anthony or whoever, right? You're praying to that saint. You're not worshiping them. You're using that imagery or statuary to remind you of them, just like you have a image of your grandmother or family or son or daughter or whatever in your house. By having pictures of your family member, that doesn't make you an idolater. Again, if you said, like, my son is God, then that's a different story. But you're not saying that. This is a representation of a person that you love, right? That's not idolatry. And it does not fit into the criteria of Exodus 20 of making idols, because that's a completely different thing. I hope you found this video interesting and informing, and I don't mean to make this video to just bash Protestants. I didn't do that. I'm just trying to clear the air. I don't like when people make these accusations that are completely false. Catholics worship statues. Catholics worship Mary. No, we don't. Buy a catechism. It's $8. If you want to see what we actually believe, open it up. But don't go and make these crazy complaints or crazy accusations about what Catholics do without even knowing what Catholics do. You know? I don't go around and say that, like Methodists or Baptists, worship aliens or something like that. But they don't. I mean, if I want to know what a Baptist believes, a particular denomination of Baptists, I'm going to go and research them from their sources or from a secular source. I'm not going to go to, an anti-Baptist website to, research them, So I'm just saying, be fair when it comes to religion or anything. Be fair. Don't condemn a group of people without even knowing what they believe, just what you assume what they believe. Okay, I hope this was interesting, and take care.